Today we're going to be looking at Nvidia, AMD, semiconductors, and other AI and robotic stocks, and I'm going to give you an idea of where I think we're headed on the chart for these companies over the coming weeks and months. So first and foremost, taking a look at Nvidia, we've seen a lot of breakouts. It's been in this really strong uptrend. You can see it's been beating earnings every quarter. If you look at top line revenue growth, quarter versus the prior year's quarters, around 200 to 250% growth rate, and then we're almost around 100% trailing 12 months on an annual basis. So this company's been growing a lot just because of the demand for its GPUs. And you can see here that it did break out. It topped out around this 96 level and eventually broke out above. That was a strong breakout. It created this gap and we pushed to the upside around $141. Ultimately, usually when you have a strong breakout, it will come back down and fill that gap, and that gap will act as support, and then we'll have a push to the upside. And that's what you saw there back in August when Japan raised rates. A lot of tech companies had a larger correction, but that level acted as support, and then we formed this consolidation pattern. Usually after an uptrend, you'll consolidate, and then if buyers are stepping in, you're going to have a breakout to the upside, and that's what we saw on Nvidia. But since then, it's been a bit slow. It's created this head and shoulders pattern, which is bearish, where you have a left shoulder, the head, and the right shoulder. And it's been trying to create lower highs and lower lows. You can see there's a lower low as well as a lower low there. This one's bouncing a bit. Obviously, Nvidia is such a great company that people are always going to just be stepping in to buy. But ultimately, with what happened this week with the FOMC, the Fed is pausing by 50% how many rate cuts they're going to have for next year. And I think the market is still digesting that information. We had this big drawdown. It was only about 3%. And on Friday, we had that relief rally because it was option expiration week. So you had all of those contracts expiring. Volatility was really high, and that had to unwind, and you had that relief rally on Friday. This relief rally can continue because it's holiday week, so Tuesday is going to be a short day, then on Wednesday the market's closed. So it is possible that we could have just like a melt up this upcoming week, but ultimately I do think we are going to head lower in the market as well as all other risk assets because of the fact that the Fed is not pumping as much liquidity and financially easing as much as they were previously intended to do. If I was looking at Nvidia and I wanted to trade this, I would just, right now, I would take my hands off the keyboard. I wouldn't enter any trades. This is not a good setup. Obviously, it could come back up to this 50-day moving average around 140. You could play a bounce off of that if you'd like, but ultimately, I think this 116 level is what I would be looking at. I would like it to come down and hit that level and act as support. I don't know if we will continue lower than that 200-day moving average, but I would probably just play some call contracts, shorter dates, and play that as a nice swing where you can make some good money on a bounce, especially if you're looking at tech, QQQ, and that's also hitting a support level. You'd have higher confluence of different indicators and you'd have a stronger bounce to the upside. So that's what I'd be looking for. AMD, this one, obviously, AMD, most AI companies are using Nvidia chips just because they have the better software, the better platform. So AMD's been struggling a bit on growth, but this is still a very solid company with real enterprise value. And I do think that in the long term, AMD is going to find a base. It's most likely going to be somewhere in this like $92 to $100 zone, and then it will have a push to the upside. This is similar to like Amazon, which I have a bunch of drawings here because I was taking a look at this previously, but it came back down into this volume shelf, and we can just look at it here on the chart. Once it came back down in there, this was like the point of control around $89. Amazon's not going anywhere as a company and had a strong push to the upside. And I think that this similar play could work for AMD. And it was like a very similar thing that happened with Facebook, or now known as Meta. So AMD I am bullish on, but because the year hasn't ended yet, there's still a lot of tax loss harvest selling that's going on. So this downtrend is likely to continue. I'd probably like to buy AMD right around the end of this year, right before, as well as, maybe on the 30th or the 31st. I think I'll have a bounce into the new year, or just waiting until January. But it will form a base. You don't have to try to buy and catch this knife right now. I would like for it to come down and maybe consolidate a little bit first. And then at some point, I think in the longer term, it could have that really nice push to the upside over the next 2 or 3 years and break all-time highs. But like I said, you don't want to bet against the trend. The trend is your friend. Be patient, scale in, and play more for the long term. Don't try to just time this. If you're just buying call contracts a month out, you're probably just going to get run over. And then AMD, just taking a look at this, obviously we had the 50-day break below the 200-day, which is bearish. If we remove that, you can see that it's been consolidating a lot, but it is in this downtrend. It did try to break over this trend to the upside. It rejected off the 200-day, and then it's had this push back down. I do think that it will come and try to fill this gap at some point. I'm currently short SOXX, which is a leveraged ETF on semiconductors, but I do think that this will head lower, probably around this 197, 200 level. That'd be a nice little area for it to bounce. But at some point, I think in this larger pattern, it will come down and fill that gap around 188 to 190. That's going to act as strong support. Definitely going to be playing call options once it gets there. Then a few other interesting ones. Obviously, Cathie Wood, she has ARKQ. This is technology and robotics ETF. If you're familiar with Cathie Wood's work, she's just makes a lot of outlandish calls in the market, but she's had some success here. This is mainly made up of Tesla, Teradyne, Archer, and Rocket Labs, and those stocks have had a really strong push to the upside. If you look at Rocket Lab, if you look at Archer, you see that it's had all these strong pushes, but usually when stocks pump like they do, they will have a bigger crash because they're so far extended above moving averages that they need to find fair value on the price. And then looking at BOTZ, this is another robotics ETF. This one's mostly made up of Nvidia, actually, as well as Intuit Surgical. But you can see that it came back up and it actually tested this previous area of support and a previous breakdown point, and that area acted as resistance. If you were looking at this chart, you could have identified that you could have shorted it there. But ultimately, I do think because Nvidia is going to head lower, I would probably not play this currently. I would like to see this break below that 200-day and come down to that level. If it comes down to this level, Nvidia is also around its 200-day. That's going to be like a really good setup if you want to play calls to the upside here. But like I said, I'd be playing very short dated on most positions to the upside right now until the market has a larger correction. 3% is not a correction. I'm thinking more of anywhere from like 7 to 11% in the market before we could actually have another uptrend. So playing very patient, very risk adverse for now, playing some bets to the downside. But of course, when there's a lot of volatility, there's going to bring a lot of opportunity. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll be posting a bit more this week. Make sure you guys hit that like, subscribe, and follow the challenge below if you want to check out my other videos. We're trying to grow an account to $1 million. Not sure how long that's going to take, but we'll see if we can get there. Peace. See you in the next video.